Anuradha Vedic Astrology. Today, we are going to talk about deciphering how to understand 5 planets or multiple planets combination in a chart. Multiple planets involving Sun, Mercury and Venus are very common in charts, and we have made a video on that. So today we are going to talk about a combination which is different from Sun, Venus and Mercury. Maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 planet combinations. But before that, a very big thanks to all of you for writing in your comments and your suggestions on our YouTube and Spotify channels, and liking, sharing and subscribing to our channels. If you haven't liked or subscribed to our channels, please do that, and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you can get the updates as soon as the videos and the audios are released. Let's talk about the combination of more than 2 planets in a chart. When we have planets which are more in number in a chart than in a single house, then there is a concentration of a number of planets there, and as such it creates an imbalance. Planets which were supposed to be distributed all over the charts and functioning through those houses and signs are now concentrated in a particular house in a particular sign. So all the effect that they're going to give to us has to be through that sign and that house of their karakatvas and of the houses that they own. And especially if these planets happen to be Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, then they would be controlling the entire chart from that particular house. We will be looking into the matter in great depth with others charts also. Say, supposing in charts of in the chart of Osho that we take, we know, all of us know about Osho, so we'll also be taking a common person's example who has given me his chart as a permission to be used here. So we would be understanding things on Osho's chart. As I said, I have mentioned earlier that we are supposed to see the sign as well as the house. What I meant here, by example, I'm just telling you that here the sign is the sign of Sagittarius, which talks about having a strong power of discrimination. It also talks about one having the ability to understand what is right, what is wrong, to go into deep studies, to travel abroad, to understand religion and culture. Now, if I'm moving into the 8th house, the 8th house talks about Bhog as well as Yog. That means it talks about fulfilling our desires, and it also talks about moving towards Yog, or moving towards deep sadhana. It also talks about research. It talks about understanding human psyches and large sum of other people's money. Osho, as we all know, was supposed to be the sex guru of the world. He has, but it's very wrong to say just sex guru. He has moved into very deep topics and written very good publications based on his understanding and his deep research. Publications, incidentally, are also some things that we see from the sign of Sagittarius. So there's a lot of things that come up, and centrifugal force, again, being the 8th house and the sign of Sagittarius in his chart. Then an example of a person, as I repeat, this chart is given, and there are 4 planets, and the major ones are that Saturn, Jupiter, Sun and Mercury sitting in the 4th house of 5th house, and the sign being Taurus. Now the 5th house, as we all know, is the house that talks about popularity. It talks about higher learnings. It talks about being flamboyant. It talks about lots of money. It talks about share markets. It talks about understanding things. It talks about grandparents. And when we are to see the sign of Taurus, it talks about your family. It talks about money. It talks about learning and education. And it talks about family matters and learnings, as I said earlier. So we can see that the person's life, again, we have done the concentration and we move into the important clue that we have been able to understand from these two charts. That is the pending karma, that it is so called. What is the pending karma of the people having these two charts? In Osho's chart, it was being a guru, being a writer, prolific writer, being an influencer, as they call it in today's day and time, and talking to people coming from a very deep sense of understanding of fundamentals in life and influencing people about those fundamentals, being a very prolific writer. In fact, his audios and video and books are sold in the world even today, so many years after his death. When we look at the chart of this common person, we see that it is all about money. Yes, incidentally, he's been earning lots of money. Keeping his family name up has been one of the major focal points of this person. Becoming independent, becoming popular. There's also fifth house also talks about your oratory parts and your ability to influence people. Yes, the fifth lord is also exalted in the third house. So it does talk about, gives him a wit and ability to influence people and to have a good say. Now let us talk about strong planets giving their powers to weaker ones. We see that in the common man's chart, Osho's chart, I can very well explain. So I'd like to explain it in the chart of this common person, as I say, that sun, during its Dasha, should have given great powers, great recognition, or great facilitation. But sun in its Dasha, one can also say that it's the eighth lord. So it would give a lot of transformation. Agreed. But it is the strongest planet and it owns the fifth house of the natural zodiac. So it's quite comfortable as a fifth in the fifth house. But no, during the Dasha of the sun, the person underwent a lot of turmoil. In fact, loss, grandparent, the most beloved of grandparent also. We should always remember that when Sun, Saturn are together, Sun incidentally gives its power to Saturn, because Saturn is his son, would carry the legacy forward. So when Sun and Saturn are together, the person may not have a very good Sun period, but a good Saturn period would definitely be indicated. Similarly, in Osho's chart, we see that Saturn, Venus, Mercury, and Mars are there. He made an excellent yogi, because Saturn, he made a yogi who defied the rules and regulations of being a yogi. He wore colored clothes. He talked about a lot of things that are not within the preview of the yogi, but however, he still maintained to do that because the powers were handed down by a Saturn. Then we talk about a static promise that we see in every chart. Every chart will have a certain promise, or that is known as the yoga or the potential. In Osho's chart, we can see that these 5 planets will be dictating their own houses, so to speak. And in this chart, we will see that there are 4 of these planets, which will again dictate the entire chart. Why so? Because Saturn will be aspecting the 3rd house, the 10th house. That means Saturn would be aspecting the 7th house, the 11th house, as well as the 2nd house. Jupiter would be aspecting the 9th house as well as the Lagna, not to forget the 11th house. And these 2 planets would be aspecting these charts. In addition, Jupiter owns the 3rd house and the 12th house. So they would also be, these planets would also be together casting their shadows on those houses. It's through sitting on the sitting in the 5th house that Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and Sun are able to work out the karma of their own houses. So let us move further and check out another few things. Yogas to sannyas or asceticism. Yes. So is there yoga present in the sannyas? Now there we will find many yogas. That when there are 4 or 5 planets together, we generally hear that classics say that it is a sannyas yoga. Well, we need to dig in a little deeper in the classics. The classics say if there is a combination of Saturn and Moon together, Moon is the mind and Saturn is the ability to move away from something, to just let go. So when there is Moon and Saturn together, you have the ability to create a certain amount of letting go between the Moon and the mind. That is an important part to give you an yoga of asceticism or a sannyasi. So every 4-5 planet combination will definitely not give you a sannyasi. It could lead you to becoming a bhogi also, depending on the planets that are present there. If there is a section of Rahu, Venus, Mars, and Mercury, one could be prolific writer, but on a very different level altogether. So we cannot say that all the yogas will lead to a sannyas yoga. But if Saturn is present there, it will give virakti or differences or an ability to let go and move out of the situation. So Saturn and essentially Saturn Moon, if it is present, it will give one the aptitude of a sannyasi. The look of it will be defined, as I said, because there's Venus present, it gives him an ability to wear different clothes, beautiful clothes, be flamboyant because of the Mars. In the case of this person, because Saturn and Jupiter is present, this person has an ability to think without prejudice. This person can sit on judgment without prejudice. And there he can be the one not to take sides and think dispassionately or be a yogi in his thought process and learning process, because the 5th house is also your house of learning. It can give you a connect with the Paravidya. Okay, and then we come to the desire. See, all these is a promise that the chart has. So yes, we have a desire, but are we following it up with an action? There must be many people born at the same time that Osho was born, or at the same time that this child or this person was born. But we have to understand that when we put our when we see a certain combination and our life is moving in a particular direction, if we are resisting it a little too much, then we are not fulfilling the karmas, the pending karma of the chart, and we are not allowing things to happen in life, saying that this is wrong and this is right, because we can sit on judgment very easily, which we shouldn't be doing. So it's very important that the chart be followed up by the actions that one need to take. Again, there is the case of house activities. As I said, in the case of Osho, what are the house activities? Here again, let us take the signs that and the houses that are being influenced here. First, we start from Moon. Moon is the lord of the 3rd house, and we see Mars already aspecting that house. So the 3rd house is active. Then we take up Mercury. Mercury is the lord of the 2nd house and the 5th house. Both are also under aspect. So we have 2, 3, and 5 being very strongly aspected, as well as being influenced, because Saturn aspects the 10th house, and as Saturn aspects this, the entire combination is aspect. And then we have Venus. Venus is the lord of the Lagna, and it is also the lord of the 6th house. As I said, this is also an important house to consider. Why? Because in the combination, wherever this lord is sitting, it will give you that results. Osho, we all know, had sudden enemies. He had his share of bone of contention, and that did prove to be his downfall. Again, we have the 8th house, the 7th house, and the 12th house, international name and fame, public standing, 8th house already there. Then we have the 9th and the 10th and the 11th, because 9th house is aspected, 10th house is aspected by Saturn, 11th house is aspected by Mars. Similarly, for this chart, so you can understand that this 1/8 house has control over so many houses and also the planets that it is aspecting in turn. Very important point to consider. Similarly, for this combination, we see that Sun, we'll start with Sun here. Sun is the lord of the 8th house, sitting in the 5th house. So Sun's house comes under the radar. 8th house is important. We sit with Mercury. Mercury combination gives us the 6th and the 9th house. So 5 and 9 lord, 5 and 6 lord. Any competitive exam this person would want to sit in, he would definitely excel. And he has excelled. Then, when we talk about Jupiter, Jupiter aspects your 11th house, Jupiter aspects your 9th house, and it also aspects the Lagna. So the person is safe and secure. We have heard it time and time that whenever Jupiter aspects the Lagna, the person has a steady grace of the Lord above. Not only that, Jupiter also owns 2 houses, which are the house, the 12th house and the 3rd house. The person can have a strong desire to learn by traveling, because traveling will give him or her a very different perception of life. Let's come to Saturn. Saturn owns the 2nd house, and the Lagna also aspects the 2nd house. And it also is aspecting the 3rd house. It is also aspecting the 11th house. So many planets aspecting the 11th house. Money becomes focal. Wanting to be creative becomes focal. And also we see that going abroad, traveling, we see everything happening from the 5th house. It's basically to do with learning. It's basically to do with earning and becoming more popular. How would you be able to do that? With these planets and everything. Now, Shani has a Karakatva. What is it? Being slow. Shani is being thorough. Jupiter has a Karakatva. Developing your wisdom. So the person, Mercury has a Karakatva. It is about learning, grasping, and just being very rudimentary about it. Sun has a Karakatva. Excelling in whatever you're doing, because you're the king, so you have to be the best. So, and in the 5th house, so you have to be the best in learning, you have to be the best in understanding, you have to be the best in giving the advice. All these things would definitely show a very strong characteristic in this person's chart. Again, as we move to the Dasha results, Dasha results are very important. We cannot ignore the Dasha results or the transit results, because sometimes the moon can be in a place when the child, during the Jupiter Dasha for that child, probably could come to in a place. If the moon were in one of the Jupiter nakshatras, then it could come to at a time very early in life, and that period would, because Jupiter is present in the 5th house, would be enjoyed by the grandparents and not by the children. If Jupiter Dasha came in very late, then that period and those activities could be enjoyed by the children and not by the person himself. So it's important to locate the Dasha period. Now, having said that, during the Antar Dasha of these periods, the child would also be able to gain a lot of knowledge. The final parting say that I have to say about the Dasha period is that Laghu Parashari very clearly states that when the Dasha Lord and Antar Dasha Lord are connected, it is sure that the Antar Dasha Lord will give the results of its own house and that of the houses of the Dasha Lord. So when we have a combination of 4 or more periods here, planets here in a chart, together sitting in a house, then it's very strongly said that a number of things in the person's life would be activated, would be completed, because the Dasha Lord and the Antar Dasha Lord are quite related to each other. Do write in how you found this combination working, and when you have applied these principles, how you found these combinations working in the charts that you have. Till we meet with you again, बेल आइकन को दबाएं ताकि आपको वीडियोस की अपडेट मिलती रहे। हमारे वीडियोस को लाइक करें, शेयर करें, उन पर कमेंट करें और हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें।